Okay, we are out at my dad's farm again today. We are up in the yard though because there are a couple of trucks parked down on the bottom road, so I'm assuming we have whitetail hunters today, and we're going to stay out of the woods and let them hopefully get their deer. What we are comparing today are a couple of personal shelter sized tarps. On the right here we have the DD Multicam 3x3 tarp, and on the left we have the Etowah Outfitter 10x10 Woodland Camo Tarp. Okay, beginning with the DD, this is a completely square tarp. It has 16 perimeter tie outs. Around the outside of the tarp there are 16 tie outs, and they are 29 inches apart. There are also 3 ridgeline tie-outs down the center here, in between these perimeter ones on the edges, and just in the middle of the tarp there are 3 more. So the total is 19 tie-outs, and again they're 29 inches apart. The material that this tarp is made from is polyester. This is a polyester tarp that has a TPU coating. They say it's a PU coating, just polyurethane, but I'm, you know, for what I understand from my reading, you know, the polyurethane is a pretty common term that covers a lot of different application processes. I do think that this is a thermal application, so that's a TPU coated polyester tarp. Now, let's, I'm going to shut the camera off for a second. We're going to move a little closer to the Etowah Outfitters tarp. Tie outs, let's see, this also has 16 perimeter tie outs. Around the outside there are 16 tie outs. There are also 3 down the ridge line. The tie outs are 29 inches apart. So the BCUSA Etowah Outfitters tarp, because of the way they did the seam, is short an inch of being identical in size to the DD tarp. And their tie outs are, you know, spaced exactly the same, and there's the exact same number of them because they're pretty much identically sized tarps. The BCUSA tarp, or Etowah Outfitters tarp. This is a nylon. This is a 70D nylon that is TPU coated. So, you know, again about the polyurethane, I think that they specify that it's a thermal polyurethane, but I'm pretty sure that that's just how it's done for tarps like this, so I think that they're both polyurethane. So this is a nylon material, and the DD tarp is a polyester material. Same size, similar features with the camouflage, and the same number of tie-outs placed in the same places. Both of these tarps weigh 1.8 pounds. I will mention that the DD tarp came with some accessories. That tarp came with, I think, 4 stakes and some cordage, some guy lines. So it did come with some extras, and those were in their own stuff sack. Both of these tarps come in nicely sized stuff sacks that it's easy to roll these tarps back up and get them back in their stuff sacks. Now, I think what I'm going to do, I think I'm going to pitch both of these tarps in some common configurations that you know, give you an idea of what sort of coverage you can expect for them. Fortunately for us today, we have my mom used to have a clothesline down by one of the sheds, and I think we'll use that as a ridge line for one of these, and the other one I think I'm going to pitch into a tent. So I'm going to pitch these tarps, and then we'll get back on camera and we'll talk about the coverage and how the material behaves, and probably start talking about the big differences between these. We've talked about the similarities, but there are some pretty big differences to think about. So, okay, here we go. I'm going to pitch these, and then we'll have a look at them while they're set up in a couple of different configurations, and then we'll go from there. Okay, this is a really common configuration for, in fact, specifically this DD 3x3 tarp. You'll find a lot of videos on YouTube showing you how to set up the DD 3x3 tarp tent. This offers quite a lot of coverage, and for poor weather, it's a good storm setup. It's covered on more than 3 sides. You can be out in quite a lot of rain and even some snow with a little setup like this. Takes about 15 minutes to pitch it if you've got a trekking pole. I have an aluminum pole. Let's get a little closer look. All right, I'm going to go ahead and crawl in there. The roof is high enough to sit in, but you won't be able to see me when I'm sitting there because the pitch of that roof will hide me. But it's tall enough to sit in. It's big enough to sleep 2 people in, and gear. So yeah, this is kind of a cool setup, really. All right. Further demonstration is probably pointless since I'd be inside the tent. But again, common configuration, big enough to cover 2 people, actually quite comfortably. Costs a 44-inch pole. You can cut a stick if you want to, or use a trekking pole. 3 pieces of guy line. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 stakes at the least, actually 7 for the front guy line. I'm using 2 for my front, but most guys just use 1 for the little porch pull out there. I would have a fire in front of mine, so I split that into 2. But anyway, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And you could and probably should use 7, 8, maybe 9 total to pin it down nice for wind. Okay, let's move on to the other one. I've got that set up around back here. Hang on. Okay, let's give you a little idea of the sort of coverage you'd get from just making one of these into a lean-to. There's quite a lot of room. It's an awful lot of room when it's all spread out like this. In fact, like this, I think you could sleep 3 sleeping bags side by side without really any difficulty. If you had bad weather, that might make things tougher. You might want to pick a different configuration and close off an extra side or something. But for just a nice night out without any terrible weather, yeah, you could sleep 3 under something like this. So hopefully, that gives you a pretty good idea of just how much coverage there is on a 10 by 10 or 3 meter by 3 meter tarp. We are going to finish this video up back at the shop on the review table where I show you other things. There are some pretty key differences in the construction of these tarps, and I do have a favorite between them. And I think I'm also going to bring back the AquaQuest Defender Camo Tarp just to show you one feature it has that neither of these have. Okay, it was a nice day at the farm. We'll pick this back up at the office in a day or 2. Okay, today we are comparing a couple of personal shelter size tarps. Closest to us is the DD 3x3 Multicam version of their tarp. Farthest away from us, this is the Etowah Outfitters 10x10 Woodland Camo Tarp. Etowah Outfitters. I believe that this is the exact same tarp that both Ben's Bushcraft and BCUSA sell. BCUSA isn't real clear about it, and correct me if I'm wrong. If you have one or you have one of each, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that this is the exact same tarp that BCUSA sells. The reason I believe that is because I own one. It's not here to give a direct comparison, but I loaned it out to a friend who's working in the Bakken. I haven't seen it in a few months, and I don't know if I will honestly ever see it again. So, but my recollection of that tarp, having had it in hand, you know, within the year, and it being a constant companion for me out in the woods for quite some time, I believe that they're the same tarp. Again, correct me if I'm wrong. Okay, there are some differences to talk about and some similarities to talk about between these two tarps. The DD 3x3, this is a UK company. For what I understand from their website, they are based in Scotland. The 3x3 refers to meters, not feet. This is a 9 foot 10 inch by 9 foot 10 inch tarp. The Etowah Outfitters 10x10 is a 9 foot 9 inch by 9 foot 10 inch tarp. They lose an inch by the way they do their center seam, so it's no big deal. It's basically square. They lose an inch to the center seam. So these are basically identically sized as far as the kind of coverage you're going to get from them. They do have, you know, they're made out of different material, and this is kind of important. The DD is made out of a polyester. This is a 190 Tex polyester. I've done some reading and trying to understand the difference between polyester and nylon and how they're manufactured and you know, their strength. This 190T is incredibly comparable to a 70D nylon. These are, you know, as far as tensile strength, as far as the load-bearing strength, as far as, you know, how long they'll put up with sun. Polyester will soak up water a little less than nylon, but nylon will dry out a little faster once it's wet than polyester will. You're going to have to ask Google some questions if you want to know a whole lot more about that. But the fact of the matter is, this 190 Tex and this 70 denier, they're very, very similar. One of the big differences is that polyester does not stretch very much. You do get some stretch in nylon, and that's just how it is. It's how it's made. If you get a polyester to the point it breaks, it will, if you stretch it to the point where it fails, it will fail spectacularly. It will come apart. This is a ripstop nylon, and if you don't understand ripstop, I think we can maybe you can see these little squares in the fabric. Let's see if we can get a good picture. Can you see the squares in the fabric? Every millimeter or so, there is a thread that travels a different direction than the weave. That's you know, it's a heavier thread that goes in the other direction. So when ripstop nylon tears, those threads are supposed to stop the tear somewhere along the line. That's what they're designed to do. This polyester material does not have that feature. So, you know, if you do stretch one of these to the point of failure, this is probably the superior fabric. And actually, it's not really a fabric, it's a material, but that's another topic for another day. Both of these materials are very appropriate for their purposes, and there are some pros and cons. The other thing to say about polyester, or this particular polyester, is it's kind of noisy. It's a little stiff. It's got a little noise to it when it's waving in the wind, or you're folding it up, or just handling it. This nylon is incredibly quiet stuff. It doesn't wrinkle, crinkle like this does. Along with that, because this polyester does not stretch, you can make your tarp a lot tighter with this one. You can make a drum type shelter with it, so the wind won't be waving it around and making it make noise. With the nylon, once you've made it drum tight, it will begin to stretch, and you'll have to readjust one or more times to keep it tight, depending on how long you're keeping your shelter up. So yeah, I think that's kind of a wash. That's the ability to stretch this one tight so easily compared to which makes this not noisy when it's up, compared to this one just not being noisy, but you have to readjust your tension. Yeah, that's pretty equal. Let's get to where these tarps are not so equal. And I'm going to talk about these tie-outs here. I think that this really is worth talking about. Tie-out on the Etowah Outfitters 10x10 tarp. There it is. This is a pretty thin nylon webbing with a single stitch holding this to the seam. See if you can see that. That's what holds it in there. Let's find a center seam tie out and show you one of those. Exactly the same sort of situation. Single stitch holding that onto the outside of this seam. Folded it over so that you don't have tag ends laying out. No, on the inside on this seam, let me get to it, sorry. There's where I'm holding on to the, there's no reinforcement here. No reinforcement. The seams do not come sealed. That adds, $6-ish to your total cost of ownership, is getting a tube of seam sealer and sealing this seam. Yeah, so this $75 tarp, is now an $80, $81 tarp. Plus you've got to seal the seam yourself. And then I would also suggest on at least your corner tie-outs, well, you should probably consider throwing another stitch in here yourself, at least on the corners. I've owned a BCUSA tarp for a few years. I never really had an issue with how this was done. It is strong. I shouldn't be complaining. It's just that when I compare it to this other product, look at all that webbing. It's twice as thick as the stuff on the BCUSA. Look at how much they did to stitch it down and to reinforce the material. Wow, it's doubled over, so it's twice as much. It's twice as thick. It's got way more than twice as much stitching, plus they reinforced the material that they stitched it to. Let's find a center one. Let's find a center tie out. Here's the inside. It's really kind of hard to see, but there's a patch. There's a second layer of material, and then the loop. You can see these square boxes. They stitch down all the way around. They made a square, so that's not just doubled, it's quadrupled. They quadruple stitched the and not just once but twice they quadruple stitched it down here and here on a reinforced area. Wow. You know, when I compare that to they folded it over and ran one stitch through it right in the seam, superior isn't even the right word. It's so much better. I mean, we got to get beyond superior to describe this. This is so much better done for $1 different in price. Same size, same weight. You know, they're both a camo tarp. I actually like the DD's Multicam better. Now they sell a forest camo for a little less money than this one. This one just happened to be, you know, the same price, and I thought it'd be worth comparing. I bought this DD tarp not expecting such attention to detail, and it's so much better than the other one. Now, I would have never complained about the other one. I own another one of those, and it's treated me just fine for quite a long time. It's been out many, many times. I don't know, I bet you I've used it no less than 80 to 100 times. My other one has been out on loan now for several months to a guy working in the oil fields in North Dakota. I'm gonna bet you that he's been using it relatively constantly for the last several months. I did rip a tie out of my BCUSA one time. I don't remember which one it was. I you know, was using a trucker's hitch to you know, secure it, and I pulled it too tight, and I tore one pretty good. But you know, it took me all of 4 or 5 minutes to repair it in the field with some number 9 bank line and a needle that I keep in my kit. So, you know, I mean, I abused it, I overdid it, I tore that out, and I fixed it within minutes, so I never thought much about it. But now that I'm comparing these tie-outs with the tag ends still hanging out here, one stitch through it, threads exposed when you stretch it a little bit. Now that I'm comparing it to an identically priced, identically weighted, similar material that's done 10 times better, 1,000 times better, I don't know, it's just way better. When I compare it to that, now I do think that this is inferior. It really is. They need to step up their game. Etowah Outfitters needs to step up their game. I mean, at the very least, give me double stitches on my tie-outs. At the very least, give me a double stitch. To add to that, you know, what's next after double stitching these? Heat tape the seams. You know, my AquaQuest came with heat tape seams. I paid, that's a slightly smaller tarp, but I paid a little less money for that one. And it has heat tape seams. This DD tarp has heat tape seams. Well, Etowah, step up your game a little bit. Heat tape your seams, you know, send it with sealed seams. At least seal them with some sealer, because that adds $5 or $6 to the price of the item. Yeah, reinforce these and seal your seams. And gee whiz, I don't think there'd be much left to complain about. You know, reinforced corners would be nice, but not absolutely necessary. It's also something I like about the AquaQuest. Came with reinforced corners. Those have pull pockets sewn into them to make it easy to loft that tarp. Okay, both of these tarps came with some stuff. Not that much stuff, but some stuff. They both came with stuff sacks made from the same material that they're made from. I like that, and both of these stuff sacks are plenty big enough to get those tarps back into. I like that quite a bit too, because sometimes you get a piece of gear and the stuff sack's a little small, and you're always fighting to get. You know, I've got a Thermarest air pad like that came with too small of a stuff sack. I can never make it small enough to go back in there, so I wrap a couple of big rubber bands around it and throw it in my pack till I get home and fight it in there at home. Okay, the DD 3x3 tarp came with some other stuff. Came with a couple of lengths of guy lines, and these have some, you know, tensioners on them. There's 4 tensioners, and so I'm assuming that I haven't untied this. I haven't used this guy line. Looks like there's probably 2, you know, 3 meter long pieces of string with tensioners on both sides. Came with 4 steel tent stakes. Nothing to write home about. They're just, you know, just steel tent stakes. Find those just about anywhere. And this stuff came in its own little stuff sack. Etowah Outfitters did not ship anything extra that I noticed other than the tarp and the stuff sack. Alright, some of this video is indoors, some of this video is outdoors. I think right now what I'm going to do is give you my closing thoughts. The DD 3x3 and the Etowah Outfitters, and this is the they make other versions that cost different amounts of money, but the DD 3x3 Multicam and the Etowah Outfitters BCUSA, probably, correct me if I'm wrong, and Ben's Bushcraft 10x10, they weigh the same, they cost within $1 of one another, they're pretty much exactly the same size, they have the exact same number of tie-outs placed in the same places. At the same money, if you're asking me what to spend $75 on because you want a tarp like this, the DD is getting my money from now on. If I have need for another personal shelter size tarp, I'm getting it from these guys. I'm getting another DD. Etowah Outfitters needs to step up their game to remain competitive or think seriously about the price that they're charging. Because at the exact same money, within $1, the exact same money, this product is head and shoulders above theirs. Yeah, so there you have it. I have a pretty strong opinion on these two. Now, if we were throwing my AquaQuest into the mix, then gee whiz, that makes it even stiffer competition for the BCUSA Etowah Outfitters Ben's tarp, and you know, it makes some pretty equal points between the DD and it. Although that one's maybe we'll do a video like that. I'm not going to get any deeper into that. Maybe we'll do that video in the near future. But here we go. You know, if you're asking for my opinion, I'm telling you to buy the DD over the Ben's Bushcraft, Etowah Outfitters, BCUSA. At least the Multicam Tarp. It's the only one I've owned is 2 of these now. Maybe their other ones are different. I don't know. Okay, I really thank you for taking all this time to listen to me. I really do appreciate it, and I hope the rest of your day goes really, really well.